long time no see from your faithful person who reviews things. As I'm now in a room where people can probably hear me speak through the door, I may be speaking a little bit more quietly, but also everyone knows I speak to myself now because I'm a very strange person, so it's not that worrying really. The Italian. Very Italian. I'm not a very good Italian, am I? I sound like Mario. Or someone incredibly racist. Just realised I have course mates who are Italian who are watching this, and I apologise. I know how irritating it is seeing people do shit British accents. Or English accents, as I would say if I haven't been brainwashed by American media. Anyway, back to the point. The Italian is a book by Anne Radcliffe, who was a very popular writer in the 18th century, the 1700s. She is one of the first very popular Gothic writers, because obviously we had Horace Walpole and William Beckford and people like that beforehand, which I read also, but I didn't get around to reviewing, we won't now. But Anne Radcliffe was very successful for her day. She was that day's equivalent to someone like Charles Dickens in the 19th century, or someone like Stephen King today. Very popular, but fairly well respected writer. I mean, people slag off Stephen King because he's so popular, but let's face it, he's a very good writer. He wrote Shawshank Redemption, for fuck's sake. The Italian was shorter than her big breakup novel, Mysteries of Adolfo, which I think we didn't read just because it was maybe too long. That's probably her most highly respected one as well, but this is the second to both of those things, and this brought a massive sum of money for her manuscript. She got paid £800 for this manuscript, which doesn't sound like that much, but believe me, in those days it was a fucking fortune. I mean, apparently it was more than 3 times her husband's annual income, and her husband was a fairly well-off bloke, so you would expect him to get paid quite a bit. But yes, they paid her a lot because she was very widely read for the time. She's a perfect example of what my lecturer would call female Gothic. In fact, what any Gothic lecturer would call that, because that's what it's called. Now on to the actual review part of this video. I have to say, this is a very enjoyable read. There's nothing particularly difficult or challenging about it. I can pick it up and just read lots of it without getting particularly bored or intimidated by any of the... I mean, I don't really get intimidated very often because I'm pretentious, but it's not like another book I've been reading recently, Clarissa, which is very long and tedious, even though there is a lot of merit in it as well. The Italian is a quick and easy read. Basically that age's equivalent of a Stephen King book or something like that. But it's also very enjoyable. Not just for the obvious way. It stars a man called Vincenzo di Vivaldi, who's sort of the archetypal chivalrous hero. He's very sexist, I suppose, as we would say in modern days. He falls in love with the main female character because of her beauty, and then decides he wants to marry her immediately. But, surprise, surprise, his mum isn't very happy with that because this woman is low class. So she employs her priest to get rid of this woman. For some reason, priests did that in those days. Or he's a monk, actually, not a priest. I'm getting mixed up. I have just read this book, I assure you. And that's where the plot of the novel comes from. But we sort of get a little bit of info about Vivaldi's life beforehand. It's quite a slow start. It doesn't really get going until the end of part 1, where the girl Eleanor gets kidnapped. Spoilers, sort of, but not really, because it says on the blurb that she gets kidnapped. The second part is probably where the most of the Gothic action takes place. There's castles and escapes from monasteries, and a very chilling section, possibly the best section of the novel, I think, where Vivaldi gets taken to the Inquisition, which is basically like 1984 if it was controlled by religion. It's fucking terrifying, honestly. That's much more chilling in the novel, actually, than who's supposed to be the villain, who's Father Scudoni, who is always presented by reviewers and people who enjoy the book as a very intimidating figure. Like, I can't think of any examples. Father Scudoni sort of invented the whole intimidating figure in a Gothic novel. Well, there's Manfred, but he's a bit shit. But I was going to say about Father Scudoni is he's a very interesting character, but I would say he's more pathetic than intimidating. The most intimidating character in the novel, character-wise, is Father Nicola, who doesn't really get revealed until the end of the novel. He's a sort of mysterious figure for most of it, and he sort of works with the Inquisition, but not really. But him and the Inquisition are both much more intimidating. Father Scudoni is almost pathetic by comparison, which does beg the question, why did Lord Byron dress up as him? Lord Byron was a bit mad, I think. He had a lot of orgies as well, so... The novel was very enjoyable up until, I'd say, the last 50 pages or so. I feel like there's some loose ends that aren't really tied up, although they could be chalked up to Vivaldi's overactive imagination, because he's a very imaginative guy, but there could be something else. We don't really know, and it doesn't feel like Anne Radcliffe left that ambiguous deliberately. It just felt like she forgot to tie up the loose ends. But my main criticism of the last 50 pages is that we don't really feel like there's a villain of the novel. Scudoni feels like the villain for the first half at least. He's sort of, I won't tell you why, but he becomes a lot less intimidating the more the novel progresses. Even when we find out about his dark past, it's not a past which makes you think he's a particularly dangerous person. It just makes you think he's more pathetic and temperamental, and especially as he's presented earlier in the novel as an incredibly intimidating and calculating person. It does make him seem a lot less like that the more the novel goes on. So that's my major criticism, is that the ending of the novel sort of makes Scudoni less villainous, if you know what I mean. And they don't really come up with a replacement. I mean, Father Nicola is the best example, but his intentions are never explicitly villainous, even though his character is very, very much so. They never really marry the two in a overarching villain. And I mean, in a proper sort of serious novel, I would say, good. The villain shouldn't be a blatantly pure evil, but in a Gothic novel, that's sort of what you want. I don't want a complex villain in a Gothic novel, I want to be entertained. Perhaps the other major flaw in the book is Paulo, the servant character, is presented almost like a human dog. That is literally what he is. He talks and he has intelligence somewhat, but he loyally follows the main character around and is hopelessly devoted to him in an incredibly pathetic manner, and it's almost a bit sickening, actually. It's almost like a class equivalent of racism. I mean, he's not a different race to the protagonist, I don't think, but it's almost besides the point. He's not presented as a real person, just the incredibly loyal follower of Vivaldi. And I've read books from the 18th century before, and there are servants in that, and they're not always like this. So it's not technically a culture thing, it's just something that Anne Radcliffe has done, and I find it very uncomfortable, if I'm honest. But other than that, quite major flaw, actually, it's quite a major flaw. But I can't think of any other major, or even particularly minor, flaws in this novel. I mean, the characters aren't particularly well developed, but as I said, it's a Gothic novel, so it's not really what you want from them. I I think, as my lecturer says, and I completely agree with him on this one, Eleanor, who is the love interest of Vivaldi, is probably the novel's most intelligent and logical character. I mean, even more than Father Scudoni, who's supposed to be the most logical. She's always level-headed. There was a point in the novel where she almost gets poisoned, but she pegs that it's poison and doesn't take it. Vivaldi would have just taken it and then probably stabbed himself as he was being poisoned in some kind of heroic gesture, even though it's not particularly heroic to stab yourself for no reason. But that's what they would have thought, possibly. I don't know, probably not. Mainly, though, Eleanor is the logic one in their relationship, and that really contributes towards this whole the female domination of the genre. And it's written by a female for a female, so there wasn't much of a chance of males complaining that the female's too intelligent, because the males wouldn't read it, be too busy reading Samuel Richardson and being preached against giddy young girls like Clarissa. It's supposed to not be. I think my final point is, it's a compliment as well, it's not a bad one, is that the novel does an excellent way of portraying how evil and fucked up religion has become at this point. I mean, I suppose from a perspective of a British late 18th century writer, it's more about the Catholic Church than anything else. And another thing my lecturer says is that it's quite forgiving of the Catholic Church, because it's showing how villains like Scudoni can live inside it, but I completely disagree. The Inquisition is by far the most terrifying thing in the novel, and that isn't a villainous person inside the Catholic institution. That is the Catholic institution. British people during this time were terrified of the Catholics because the government told them to be terrified of Catholics, and they were the opposite of Protestant reason, as people would have called it. So I think it does a great job of portraying the evils of religion without really focusing too much on the good. Although, from the perspective of someone reading, it would be more the evils of the Catholic Church than religion in general. But texts change over time, even though they're not meant to, apparently. Well, not apparently. I know definitely they do. Thank you for that. I will now say the grade of this book, which is a B, I would say. And I will also sign off. I'll become Scudoni whilst I do so.